Okay, let me see. Is it up now? Let me see. Everything should be working now. Okay, let me just make sure that I'm live. I should see the camera on OBS. I should see the screen capture. Sorry guys if you just joining or people who are seeing this after the fact. I might cut this part out, but I just, I'm not used to live streaming OBS or doing any of these reaction videos. I haven't done this before. I just had to make sure that my source setup and window capture was good on OBS. I had to set up the settings in OBS. So I believe everything is good because on this end it looks like I'm able to see the stream settings through YouTube and the window capture is there because I see my cursor moving and I see the live feed. So alright, so what's the point with me live streaming this OBS and doing this whole reaction video? So Kellen Brower, Start Your Systems, came out with this video that you see on screen called the MXGP 2021 announced. Because like the trailer for MXGP 2021 came out about a week ago or like a few days ago, and he's gonna talk about his thoughts on the MXGP 2021 series and just the whole series in a whole. So I wanted to react to this because he's gonna end up talking about Milestone. I just want to hear what he has to say, and if I have any thoughts when he talks about Milestone or anything I want to bring up to counter his points, if he brings up any, or if this is just going to be a neutral video of him saying that we should be thankful for having racing video games in the first place. Yeah, then I'm just going to react to what he does, and that's basically it. So I'm just going to go into full screen. And let me make sure that the audio is good.
Of the 2021 MXGP.
Okay, fully kind of already started. Alright, let this reaction begin.
Hey, what's up everybody? It's Kellen here from Start Your Systems again, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the launch trailer of the 2021 MXGP video game, the latest edition of the MXGP series, coming to I think 5 or 6 different consoles on November 30th. Yep. I'll have some more information in the description below if you guys want to check it out. But I wanted to make this video today to kind of just go over the announcement trailer real quick and talk about it, and then we'll do some MXGP 2020 gameplay. And I want to kind of give my thoughts and opinions on a lot of stuff I saw about this announcement yesterday. I didn't make a reaction immediately to the announcement. I didn't post a video or anything. I watched a lot of other people's videos and what they thought of it, and obviously got some comments and feedbacks from our social posts that we did about this video on what people are also thinking about this game. So I wanted to kind of respond to some of that criticism or just some of the comments that I've been seeing and react to it myself, and go over some things that I feel like a lot of people either miss or just get frustrated with about this game, and give you some of my thoughts on that. So let's jump in.
Okay, so yeah, it's basically the type of video that I expected from him to make. Him just going in talking about the trailer and talking about the comments. Because usually when trailers come out, usually there's a lot of criticism, and then there's usually a lot of pushback saying, "Oh well, you should be happy that Milestone's even making these kind of games." So I just want to hear what Kellen has to say. I'll hear what he has to say. A little disclaimer: any comments I make during this, I'm not going to attack. I'm not meaning to attack people if I make a comment. If he says something I disagree with, both adults, So I'm just saying that I share my own opinion. Anyone else can share their own opinion. So don't think that this video of me is just, blasting my own opinion down people's throats, So if I do say an opinion, it's just my own opinion, and you can have yours. It's the right of free speech. That's the First Amendment. So let's just go right into this.
All right, so here's the announcement trailer. Let's just take a look. So there's a little bit of copyrighted music, I believe, playing in the background. I have it on low, so hopefully it doesn't get caught. There's not even bike sounds or anything like this. This is all just a lot of animated stuff, obviously. And then I believe most of this is real gameplay footage. Now, the first thing you're going to notice, and I have already played this game a little bit, is a lot of the rider positioning has the rider like really tucked in and low. And I think they're trying to go a step that I'll talk about a little bit later with that, but just kind of want to break some of these things down. Aesthetically it's nice. Track editor wise, they got some really cool things I think coming with the track editor. This is I think a new waypoint feature on some of the compound stuff that they have. So yeah, I mean overall it's not hugely different than 2020. I don't think. It's got a lot of the same stuff. Race director, track editor. There's a career mode. That's a cool little thing. And yeah, coming November 30th, 2021. So we're still a month and a half, almost 2 whole months away, basically, from this game being released. And there are a couple tweaks and things that they can do in the meantime. But what we saw right there, what you guys are going to see in the reveal showcase that we're doing here on Start Your Systems on Thursday, October 14th, Wyndham151, Bestard, and MXGP Game are all going to be involved in that, so you guys can check out either my channel or their respective channels if you want to get their opinions. But we're going to show off some of the game, and you guys will be able to see more of it then. But again, I just wanted to talk about some things with this game and with this series pertinent to this discussion, I feel like, about where this series is going as we're now coming into what is the 7th game in the MXGP series with MXGP 2021.
Okay, so I just wanted to stop right there because he kind of segued his way probably into the next point. Probably after like the next couple 10 seconds or 15 seconds of his video, he's probably gonna go into his points. But I've already seen the trailer for MXGP 2021. I wasn't really that impressed. I know he brought up some points because he wanted to be positive, which I do love about people. Stay positive. Be happy where they're making milestone games and doing a GP series. But there's a couple points he made in there that didn't exactly correlate. When he said the waypoint mode, um, I don't know. I wouldn't really say that's new. I mean, that's kind of an old school mode that a lot of old school racers in old school video games used to always have. I mean, waypoint mode is a very old school mode. It's not nothing new. I mean, it is new to this series, MXGP, but at Milestone's other games in Supercross 2, they had waypoint mode. So I hope people are aware that they're just bringing back old modes into MXGP and calling it new, but it's not a new mode. It's new to the series, but Milestone has in Supercross 2 put in a waypoint mode where you go into the compound and you can place down your own waypoints and make your own little races on the compound. So I just want people to get that clear. It's not really new. It's not something entirely new that they thought of and put into MXGP. It's just an old mode from a previous game that Milestone has done and just put it in this one. So, I know it technically is new, but it's not really new. It's not really a fresh idea that someone had come up with. It's probably something that the people making MXGP, the people on that team, I know it's Milestone and they're a small team, but all you had to do was transfer the mode over to a new game, so it's nothing new. Also, how you said they're going to do a showcase with him, Wyndham, and a few other YouTubers. I'll be looking forward to that and seeing what the game actually looks like because I want to see what it actually looks like. Now, I don't have my hopes up too high for that because the MXGP series is very similar game to game, and they don't make many improvements game to game because Feld, or the people that contract the game out to Milestone, they're on a yearly deal. But that's no excuse to have minimal changes because there have been plenty of game developers that have made massive changes year to year in one game. If you look at Star Wars Battlefront 1 from 2004, and then they went to Star Wars Battlefront 2 in 2005. Star Wars Battlefront 2 for 2005, although it's a Star Wars game, so that's a massive IP, should be using Star Wars Battlefront 2 for 2005 as arguably the best Star Wars video game of all time. Right up there with Knights of the Old Republic on PC, Empire at War, Shadows of the Empire for Nintendo 64. I mean, there's a lot of great Star Wars titles that came out back in the day. And from 2004 to 2005 with the Star Wars Battlefronts, those were made back-to-back years, and Star Wars Battlefront 2 had a lot of improvements on Battlefront 1. So I don't want to hear about how a game can change drastically from year 1 to year 2. Now, I do understand Milestone is a small team, and they can't pump out many changes because they're focused on community feedback and they only make the changes that the community wants. But you did hear Kellen say this is going to be their 7th iteration of the MXGP gaming series. This is going to be their 7th game in this series. Usually, with me, the first 3 games of a series picked up by a new studio, I give you the benefit of the doubt because I assume you don't know what you're doing, and now you're just getting the hang of things. Now, Milestone did do Mud in 2012, and then they went to the Supercross series, and now they're doing GPs. So they're used to pumping out 2 games a year. So that may be the problem. That's maybe too much for them to handle. A small studio can't pump out 2 games consistently on a quality basis. And I know that some people might say, oh, why don't they take 2 or 3 years? Well, they'll just go to some other studio to make the games, but people have been asking for the same things for years. Terrain deformation. If they have worked on terrain deformation since the first MXGP game, which came out in 2014, I think by game 7 you should at least have a system in place. Because right now there is no system. It's all visual. There's no ruts that, okay, so in MX Simulator there's a thing called E-Road where you're able to change the settings. And although E-Road isn't perfect and it kind of ruined the pro racing scene in MX Sim, it's at least better than nothing. At least they have something to work with. But that's a different issue because there's a lot of MX Sim players complain about E-Road because they're trying to fit a new feature in a game from 2007. But that's a point for another time. All I'm saying is we're on game 7. I think people are waiting to see terrain deformation done correctly in a Milestone game or any Supercross game or motocross game. It's time. And him saying that the game's going to come out in only a month or 2, I'm not expecting any major changes. I'm expecting there to be like collision glitches being fixed, rider models being fixed, just small little tune-ups to help the game, feel alive on release. So, like I said before, I'm be waiting to see the gameplay because right now, the video so far is him just showcasing the trailer and him just segueing into points. So now I'm just gonna let him talk, and it's only been a minute, so we gotta get this moving along.
Okay, so like I said, not much really seems like it has changed from MXGP 2020 to MXGP 2021. Now, like I said, I have played it a little bit, and one of the things that I can immediately point to that's different, well, a couple of things. First of all, that rider tuck position where the rider's a little bit lower to the handlebars and they're like doing this like charge mode thing. To me, I think they are going about it a little bit the wrong direction because, I mean, if you watch someone in real life charge into a corner or go through a section or something like that, there are times where they are in that tuck position. There are also times where they are not. They are stood up a little bit more. They're up on the pegs. They're trying to navigate through a section cleanly. And then, of course, once they get into a corner, they, get on the brakes and make sure that they're tucked to the inside of the corner and they got their rider positioning stood up a little bit. So they're like in this weird, awkward phase where in MXGP 2020, the rider's like standing everywhere. Like he's standing almost straight up and down, looks like he has a stick up his butt a little bit. In 2021, he's like leaned over, bent down in this charging position almost the entire time. So they, in my opinion, need to even that out, but we'll get into that when we play the game a little bit next Thursday. And then obviously the other thing that I can point out that's going to be different that you guys will see is there's a lot more pre-made ruts. In this game, here on Teufelstal, you can see there's inside-outside ruts, but they're not that big. They're not very easy to get into. MXGP 2021 seems to have more pre-made ruts in every corner, 3-4 different ruts. So it's still not what we want. It's still not, real live form terrain deformation ruts that adjust and come up to our liking. However, it is basically what MX Simulator has been for a long time, and it's gotten better or, updated more recently with terrain deformation, but Sim for a decade was pre-made ruts and jumps and stuff like that. So there wasn't any deformation whatsoever. So now we're getting to a level where they're making tracks with actual ruts in them. It's just not, ruts that are changing over time like I think a lot of people are hoping for. So anyway.
Okay, so I just want to stop right here because I did bring up Sim before I guess he brought it up, so I kind of, beat him to it, I guess. So he kind of brought up the road system that they're trying to implement in Sim. But the thing is, though, is that Sim's a game from 2007, so I don't expect that system to hold up an E-road system very well. This is a game from 2021 where I kind of expect them to build a system from the ground up to support the game, or use, build up the system. I mean, I know you're saying that there's inside ruts pre-made, but there's been pre-made ruts for years in motocross games. Ever since Excite Bike 64, there's been pre-made ruts. So this is nothing new. I mean, I'm sure they can always add more and make it look visually appealing to the average viewer or gamer. But as a player of motocross games, that's going to be a big deal, having ruts that change over time on a supercross track. And I still feel like the closest thing we had to that was Reflex. Reflex is still the closest thing we've had to the track changing every single lap and there being the perfect balance of speed and skill in the game, where there was a true skill gap in the game. Reflex had that perfect balance, and I know the Reflex code has been lost, and it's going to be hard for them to get back up to that level because Milestone's a small studio. But once they figure out the terrain deformation and figure out the physics on the bike, once that happens, the games will become a lot better, in my opinion. So I'm just going to segue into him talking again. I just wanted to stop because he mentioned MX Simulator. But the difference is between that game and this game is that that game engine came out in 2007 and they're trying to put a new sort of feature on the game that's not built for that. And MX Simulator did have pre-made ruts, but I have a different expectation for a game from 2007 than a brand new 2021 game. So
Anyway, that's just the differences that I'm seeing in the new game versus the old game so far, but we'll get into that. I wanted to talk about this franchise and a retrospect of it moving into its 7th game. If we go back to MXGP 1 up until now, I just kind of wanted to briefly look over what has changed, what is different. Is the game actually getting better? Are they making the right adjustments, The first thing that I see just unanimously, it seems like in the comments of a social post or in someone else's reaction video to the announcement trailer, as I mentioned, is that Milestone and these games that they make are pretty much just a carbon copy every year. It's just the same game on repeat. They just maybe update like 1 or 2 gear sets or something like that and move it on.
Okay, so I just want to talk about my point that he just made beforehand, because he might say something different or he might say what I'm about to say, but I just want to talk about my point first. So I'm going to just do this throughout the video. Whenever he makes a point, I'm going to pause the video and make my point, then I'm going to hear what he has to say. It's better than me waiting until the end, because I might not be able to talk then, because he might just move right into the next point, and, I might have, been holding on to a thought that I might have lost. So I'm just going to state my points as they come across so I have them fresh in my mind. So this whole fact that milestone games don't change much year to year. I know he's talking about MXGP, but you could easily have said this about the Supercross games, Supercross 1, 2, 3, and 4, when they started doing that in 2017, 2018. And they've been doing the MXGP series since 2014, so this is the 7th game. All I had to say about that is, I don't know, it's tough. Because like I said, they're on a yearly contract to push out a game. But like I said before, there have been other studios who are cramped for time that are able to update their game on a more meaningful basis. If you look at some other franchises like the Star Wars IPs, now I know those are larger teams, but year to year, I feel like a lot of people get played by Milestone. Like, how much is this game worth? MXGP, $60. I mean, you come to get into a rhythm where you get in the same track year after year, same bikes, bytes, same gear. I mean, the only thing that really changes is the visuals and small tune physics to the air and byte physics, so it feels slightly different enough where people don't think it's a new game. So it's like you're getting a half or 3/4 of a game every year and not a full transition into the next game. So instead of getting MXGP 7, you're really by now only at like an MXGP 4 because they've only made 4 games worth of progress in like 7 years, to sum it up. So I mean, I don't blame people for saying that these games are similar. They are. It's like they're not. I don't expect Milestone to do too much in an 8 month or 9 month time span that they have to make a game. They're a very small studio, very small team, but I do see why people complain about them. They're charging $60 for a game that's supposed to be a AAA title, and there's not too many improvements. Now, I wouldn't harp on them as much if this game was like $20. If this game was $20, I probably wouldn't even say a thing. I wouldn't even be making this video, because if you're paying this game for $20 with new updated tracks, new updated gears, slightly different ground physics, slightly different everything, I'll be fine with that. People would be fine with paying $20, $30 with minimal improvement and go on with their lives. But it's not. They're charging $60 for a AAA game where if I showed MXGP Pro and MXGP 2020, some people might be hard pressed to find the difference. People want to visually see difference. They don't want to guess on what the difference is. So that's just my take on it. I'm something what Kellen has to say.
Now, it's a fair assessment because, yes, the games don't change all that much year to year. They're pretty similar over time, and the adjustments are rather subtle. They do make some graphical improvements, they do make some physical improvements, and they do make a few changes to the customization options and stuff like that. But the thing that I wanted to point out with this, that it doesn't seem like many people ever seem to understand with Milestone's game, and that their hands are almost tied, and I feel like I've talked about this enough, but I just have to keep bringing it up. They are licensed by In-Front Moto Racing, formerly Ustream, formerly MX Life, whatever you wanted to call them, to create an MXGP video game every year, the same way they're licensed to create a Supercross game every year by Feld Motorsports or Feld Entertainment. They need to get a game out every year. They don't have the ability to just sit and take the time and 3 or 4 years to put a game together, a la what Rainbow Studios is doing with the new MXGP TV Legends game. 4 years ago, All Out came out. 4 years later, here we are with a new game supposedly coming out in Q2 or Q3 of 2022. So it's almost like 5 years because it came out in 2018, did MXGP TV All Out. But Milestone doesn't have that luxury. They have to make a new...
I was at stop real quick. My dogs are freaking out.
new game
And
every
they
year.
settled
They are
down. They just saw a person walking by.
And because of that, and the quick turnaround that they have, they are limited to the features that they can change. The prime example that you guys can always look back to is any of you guys out there that are sports fans, whether you like football or baseball or soccer or whatever, FIFA doesn't change that much year after year. Madden doesn't change that much year after year. MLB The Show doesn't change that much year after year. 2K doesn't change that much year after year. And the changes that they do make usually more or less pertain to, career mode aspects or other features added to the game. They don't make a lot of physical updates because they have basically created a system that they have stuck with or like, and that's what they're going with. And in some degree, I feel like that's what Milestone has gotten to with these games, where they feel like they've found a level with the game that they're comfortable with, and they don't want to change too much with it. Um, and whether they're right or wrong for that, that's totally up for debate. The one thing I will say is that as many people that I see complain about this game, there are actually a lot of people that like these games. It's sometimes hard for those people that complain about it nonstop to believe, but there's a pretty strong audience of people that are vehement that these games are some of the best motocross games out there. And the problem that you run into, if you're like a sim fan or an MX Bikes fan, or you think that those games are above all and the best, is that those games are very challenging. Even MX Bikes, is as easy as it can be with some of the assists turned on and stuff like that, it's still a challenging game. And the Milestone developers and Rainbow Studios developers have to make these console games for someone that's like 5-6 years old and just trying to move around in any direction on a video game, as much as they have to make it for someone who's 25-30 years old that has an advanced knowledge of the sport and is a diehard fan like you and I that are watching this video are. So they have to walk a tightrope, a balancing act, if you will, of making the game easy enough for the casual consumer to play it and the hardcore fans to play it, and both to find enjoyment in it.
Okay, I just want to stop right there because I know what he's trying to say, but I disagree on because he doesn't mention one thing. There are different physics modes in the game, one called advanced and one called standard. If he's so focused on walking this tightrope, the milestone on managing an arcade game and the sim-like experience in a console arcade motocross game, why don't you make the physics of advanced a lot harder? Because right now, advanced on MXGP games and Supercross games, it's pretty easy. If you take a week or two to learn it, basically riding on standard. The advanced physics don't really feel that advanced. So maybe if Milestone focused on making the advanced parts of their physics engine more extreme, and maybe both ends should still be satisfied because you're still giving that sim-like person who's coming to console that experience of feeling like there's a great skill gap in the game, while also putting physics on standard would make the casual player feel like, yeah, I can play this game for fun after work and not have to worry about anything. I can even let my 7-year-old child play on standard physics mode and not get obliterated by the AI. So maybe if Milestone focused on improving the physics of the game more, I'm not saying that they aren't, I'm just saying that if they've really hammered down a game or two and decided just to focus on that alone, and focused on the feeling of the bike and the inertia of the bike and like the different physics modes of standard and advanced, and pushed advanced really far to the point where it feels like a sim-like experience on a console, maybe there might be less complaining because it's all up to Milestone because I don't know what they want to do. Like, do they want to be a sim-like experience on console, or do they want to be an arcade motocross game? Because if they wanted to be an arcade motocross game that had no skill gap, there wouldn't be really glitching in the game. That's all people do at the league level in MXGP and Supercross the game. A lot of them like to do the wheelie glitching. They'll just abuse the physics of the game to go faster. And that's all the league level racing is, the top levels in this game. It's not just MXGP 2020, but the MXGP series as a whole and the Supercross series as a whole. So I think they have to make a decision on what they want to be. There's like Start Your System, Kellen Brower said, they're trying to walk this tightrope of trying to please both parties at once, and they're failing. It's like they have to make a decision on what they want to be. They want to be like an arcade style game, like obviously MX versus ATV is, or do they want to be a more sim-like approach where it's a lot more tough? Because right now, when I see a lot of MXGP and Supercross gameplay on YouTube, there's a divide. About 50% do the pro racing scene, where all they do is abuse the physics of the game, and they go super fast and it looks unnatural. And the other half is just a casual crowd who's just trying to play the game normally. So I feel like Milestone needs to make the decision on what they want their series to be, because right now I don't think they understand how prevalent the racing scene is on PS4 for league racing on MXGP and Supercross. So I think they need to get that figured out. So I'm just gonna keep this going along.
So it's tough for them to do that. I really think it's arguably one of the toughest things to do, because I feel like even Madden and FIFA and all them, you see casual fans play those games and they love them and they have a freaking blast. And then I'm a pretty big baseball fan and I follow a lot of people that are baseball savvy accounts and stuff like that, and they talk crap on MLB The Show all the time.
Into that point, on what he said about Madden, the only reason people play Madden now is because there's no other studio producing Madden games. Madden has the monopoly to create simulated football. So once 2K comes back and makes football games, and makes a good one, I doubt there'll be many Madden players left. Because the only people that put up with Madden are the people who are hardcore fans now. Even I know a lot of people that are my friends hate Madden now because of all the glitches and like the failed engine where players clip into each other, and it's just a whole mess. If you want to see more, just go visit Ryan Moody's channel. He goes through all that, all like the glitches and like behind the scenes of like Madden, and just fundamentally as a game, Madden's broken. But people still play it because it's the only Madden game that comes out every year. So obviously people are going to play that. If it's the only Madden game that comes out year after year, obviously they're the only person that people go to when they play Madden games. Like it's obvious.
And there's a lot of people that enjoy that game, and there's a lot of people that hate that game. It's like such a mixed bag, and those are the types of games that end up getting produced when they're licensed to come out with a new game every year, as is MXGP with In-Front Moto. So that's one of those things that just doesn't seem like people understand that much. And the fact that Milestone is not EA or one of these massive companies. They're a big company, but they're not huge. They're not something where they can basically just pour tons of funds and research and development into this game. They are limited in their resources, they're limited in their time, and they can only get so much done every year. Does that make up for some of the things that are glaringly wrong with these games? No, I'm not trying to make excuses for them. I'm just trying to answer some of these questions that I see so often that I feel like it's a pretty simple answer, that people are like, why don't they just spend time to make another game, and why don't they take 2 or 3 years off and come back? It's like they can't. Like, they're licensed to do it as such, and if they say hey, In-Front, no, we don't want to make this game this year or next year, we're going to wait a couple years and come back in 2024 with the best game that you've ever seen, then In-Front will go, that's great, okay, we're going to go to a different developer, and they're going to make MXGP 22 and 23 for us, and I think by that point in time we'll be pretty satisfied with them. Like, that's just how businesses work. So yeah, I mean, that's just a quick answer to the roundabout problem that people always seem to have, which is like, these games never change. And that's true, they don't change that much. But what I would argue is that, are they better, or have they changed enough over the years to at least warrant a little bit of like, hey, we're moving in the right direction?
Okay, I know what Helen's going to bring up about how we should support Milestone because they're the ones making MXGP games, and we should support them because in the future games will look better. You've been saying this for like 7 years now, Kellen. I love you, my dude. But it's been 7 iterations now. It's not going to change. I mean, I kind of know what MXGP series is all about now. And the Supercross series that they do as a whole, it's like, why am I paying $60 for each new iteration of a game, where in return the promise from Milestone is, don't worry, next game will be slightly better than the previous one. Now I understand why it's only slightly better, because they have a small team and they can't allocate too much time into every game because they have to fulfill a contract every year. But still, the problem is the price of the game. If they solve that issue, I feel like I wouldn't even be making this video. Like I said before in the video, if you make the game like $20, I feel like people will have less of a problem with Milestone. Make the game $20. It's what it's worth. And I don't like this idea of supporting a game developer on a promise that may never be fulfilled. Why am I shelling out $60 every year for the promise that may not be fulfilled that the game next year might be better? It's like an empty. It's like a gamble. I'm gambling on a studio to make the game better next year, and every year the price is $60. How much money do you need to have to fulfill the promise of making the better game? Because if I look at MXGP 2014 and 2021, there's not too much of a difference. All right, I'm done.
So that's why I wanted to make this video and talk about this today. If we go back to MXGP 1, the very first release, I mean, I could have went back all the way to Mud, the official motocross video game or whatever that came out in 2013, because it was a milestone release. It was in conjunction with another studio, but it was, you know, basically the first motocross game that they really tackled, because they'd been making the MotoGP games forever. But let's go to MXGP first, the very first MXGP game that came out in 2015. If we look at footage, I'm going to pull some footage up on the screen right now, and you'll just hear the background of the MXGP 2020 game the whole time, so I apologize for that. But if we look at footage of MXGP 1, you know, some of the things that stand out immediately are just like so stiff, little movement, not a lot of ease of action with the rider. You couldn't whip, you couldn't do anything in the air with the rider back then. And graphically, it was, you know, okay for its time, but I would say behind a lot of other games within that genre for its time. So in those two departments specifically, they've made a lot of improvements. Now, one thing that I think they've taken some steps backwards with is more or less like just the ground reaction. I wouldn't say the ground physics, like the bike in MXGP 2020 versus MXGP 1 basically doesn't seem to really do the same things to bumps as it did back then. And I feel like the gravity aspect of it comes into play a little bit, where in MXGP 1, as fast as you were going off of a tabletop is pretty much as long as you would go off of a jump. You could over jump it, you could short jump it. It's pretty hard to like really far over jump a tabletop in MXGP 2020, whereas in MXGP 1, like you could quite easily do it because the gravity, the speed, all those things factored in, like you had to be a little bit more precise. And you know, MXGP 2020, I feel like you can just almost hold it wide open everywhere, which is one of those things that diehard fans don't like about games like these. But comparison from MXGP 1 to MXGP 2020, yes, I think there are marked improvements. The physical aspect of the game in the air has gotten better. Is it the perfect solution? No, it's everybody wants MX versus ATV reflex, it seems like. It's not that, but you can do some things in the air. You can move the bike around. I think the biggest problem really MXGP 2020 and MXGP 2021 eventually will have is the rider movements don't seem to really match with what the bike is or should be doing when you're moving the controller around. So that's like one of the biggest gripes that I've always had about it, is they need to somehow meld those two things together, where the rider motion is separate. It is its own stick, for example, kind of like Reflex was, kind of like MX Bikes is now, and the movements that you have in the game are pretty determinative off of what you see in real life, based on how someone enters a corner and where their body positioning is, and how you have to get on the front of the bike, and not always just in this bent over weird position where the rider just seems like it's leaning into corners awkwardly and just doesn't do stuff correctly. That was a problem in MXGP 1. It's still a problem in MXGP 2021 in my opinion. But anyway, let's move on to a middle range game.
Okay, so I kind of agree with everything you said there. There's really no points you really need to add. Kind of what I harped upon earlier before you made that point, where I said that they need to really focus on the physics of the game, make sure everything's tight. That was back when I was talking about the standard physics and the advanced physics. They should really make the advanced physics feel like advanced physics and make standard physics for the casual gamer. So we kind of went on that point right there, and I disagree with everything you just said, so move on.
Because if we're talking about this 3 or 4 year jump, you move to like MXGP 3. It was 2 years after MXGP 1. They started to move to, I think this was their first game on Unreal 4. They added ruts to MXGP 3, and it seemed like they were going to make some positive steps. The problem I had with this game was there was so much like wrong about the actual like look of the game, I guess. Like every jump on the track was flattened out. The track.
Okay, so I don't know why. It's funny. I'm sorry. talking about flattened out jumps, every jump in MXGP feels flat. There's no airtime in MXGP. So I don't know why he's focusing on 3 with no airtime in the jumps on 3. The entire franchise has no airtime when you hit a jump. There's like no airtime anyway, so I don't know why he's complaining about 3. Something I wanted to mention.
Were very, very flat and minimalistic and didn't have a lot of elevation or big jumps or anything like that, which is still somewhat of a problem in MXGP 2021 and MXGP 2020. I still feel like, but overall, I think that they have made some improvements in that department. And then there's
improvements. I think there are some bigger kickers in MXGP 2014 than there are in 2020. MXGP. They haven't really improved much in the jumping big air time on MXGP. I mean, is this supposed to be motocross, or is this supposed to be like this little, trampoline gym that you go at, your local trampoline gym where you jump up? You can jump up pretty high, but like if you have like the small trampolines that are tiny, you only jump up like 5 feet at most. I'm just saying that the jumps aren't what they're known for in MXGP. There's really no airtime in these games. If you want to pull a fat ass whip over a huge ass kicker jump, you can't do that in these games. You'd be up in the air for maybe 2 seconds at most.
The little things that are wrong with MXGP 3 versus MXGP 2020, in my opinion, that are like the rear tire didn't move at an accurate speed. Sometimes it felt like you're just hovering above the ground, but then they also made realistic-ish working ruts that you could lay into, so sometimes that worked, sometimes it didn't. And then they just completely went away with it from MXGP 3. They could have continued on with the rut system that they had in place, but they didn't, and then they moved on to other physical aspects of the game that they were trying to improve.
Now, see, I think that was a mistake by Milestone. If they built a rut feature that people might have liked, they should have just built upon that rut feature, terrain deformation feature. They shouldn't have restarted. They should have just kept going with what they had created, and maybe by now it would have already been perfected. But I don't know why they would do that.
And a huge difference that they've made with these games, in my opinion at least, is first person. I feel like first person with MXGP 2020 is some of the best first person stuff in a video game for a motocross game. Like, it's, in my opinion, close to, if not up there with some of the simulated games and how they work in first person in MXGP 2020. And I feel like that's similar in Supercross 4.
Okay, so I will be making a first person video, how to race in first person, pretty soon, because that's all I do that in Supercross 4. I race first person exclusively. I do lead races in Supercross 4, so I don't race first person MXGP, but I'll try it. I might do a video comparing the two, because I have extensive knowledge on Supercross 4 first person.
And it's going to be similar in MXGP 2021, I feel like, where the first person aspect of the game is something that people get drawn to. It's people, people get drawn to it in MX vs. ATV All Out as well. They say it's way better for All Out to play it in first person than it is in third person, and some people say the same thing about MXGP games now. They've done a complete overhaul, I feel like, since MXGP 3 till MXGP 2020, where they've made these market improvements in the first-person gameplay and how it feels and how it looks and all those things like that. So in terms of a more immersive aspect, I feel like as a casual gamer, someone would pick this up and be like, this feels pretty cool. Like, it's got some good movements and motions to it and everything like that. So, again, there's just some improvements and some steps in reverse, I feel like, with every game, with every new game that comes out. And the people that are critics of it, that are, the diehards that want a simulated game, like, I get it. I come from a simulated background. Like, I started Start Your Systems, and it was almost exclusively sim content. I was a pro in MX Simulator at the time, and raced competitively for 5 years and was one of the best in that game. And I know what it feels like to be at a high level in a simulated game and how good that feels. And I don't think I've ever found that same enjoyment with any of these games. Whereas there's a lot of people that don't have the time or the desire, I guess, to put the time in to get good at those simulated games. And this is a good alternative for that, in my opinion. So, again, I'm not trying to...
Yeah, like I said, I think they should just do what I mentioned. bring the MXGP games and Supercross games, bring it down to like $20-$30 for the entire game. Fits the physics of the game, where if you do advanced physics, it's more like a sim-like experience on console, and make the standard assisted physics feel like casual gaming physics. They do those two options, I feel like it might solve a lot of issues. Because most of the issues that people have with Milestone and like their franchises is that you're paying $60 for a game that has minimal improvements because they're contracted every year to make out a game. But if they lower the price, it might solve a lot of issues because people won't be worried to buy another $20 version of a game year after year. It's only $20. And if they fits the physics of the game, where a pro who has played numerous Supercross or MXGP games in the past can be like, all right, I can go in advanced physics mode and feel the full immersion of the game and feel that skill factor. Well, if they put it on standard, they can just be at a casual level. It's pretty simple.
To make excuses for Milestone and some of the shortcomings that they have with their games and some of the things that people get frustrated at. And I know that there's other YouTubers or streamers out there that, you know, they just rip them apart, and that's their prerogative. I've just never been one that looks at these games and goes, this is a hot steaming pile of garbage and they need to start over from square one. Like, there are problems 100% with these games. You know, I still feel like they don't have gravity right. They need to get the ruts correct. The air physics are still quite wonky. It doesn't matter how much they've tweaked them and made them a little bit better. There's still some problems with them, in my opinion. And because of that, it's made it less enjoyable for a diehard fan of, you know, the sport and of these games to really get behind these games, because the feeling of it is just so strange at times, really. But then you play it for a little while, you get used to the feeling, and then decide that it's not as bad as maybe you thought it was. So I guess what I'm trying to get to in a roundabout way with this video is to say there's always two sides of the coin. And for the fans that
That's obvious.
are going to look at MXGP 2021 as it comes out in late November and picks it up and goes, great, another $50, $60 game that's the exact same game, nothing has really changed, etc., etc. Look for the little things that have changed before you just jump to a conclusion about how wrong the game is.
Well, if I'm paying $50, $60 on a brand new game, I expect there to be changes. Decent changes, not minimal changes. And the people who buy the new game $50, $60 every year and feel satisfied, good for them. I'm not going to blame them for buying the new game, but if they come back complaining to me saying the game is same old, I'm just going to laugh at them, because it's like, if they're willingly doing it $50, $60, then you come back to me saying it's trash. It's like, it's your own fault.
And then on top of that, go back to this game 3 years ago, you know, when it was MXGP Pro, for example. Like, go play MXGP Pro versus MXGP 2021 and just see if you feel enough of a difference to at least change your opinion a little bit.
Well, it better be enough of a difference to satisfy $120. Wait, 19 and Pro? Wait, they came back to back, so it's $60. When I'm buying a new AAA game, the next game, like let's say it's Supercross 1 to Supercross 2, MXGP 1 to MXGP 2, the MXGP 2 better be worth $60 worth of improvements for me to pick it up, personally. The next iteration of a game better be worth it. Like I said, they just better, what they need to do is change the price of the game to like $20. A lot of issues we solved.
And get kind of the full backstory of it, because all too often I feel like people just immediately have a knee-jerk reaction to these new games that come out, and they just...
Yeah, because they're paying $50, $60 for a new game that feels like they haven't... Milestone has... It feels like they didn't put much effort in.
Say, you know, stop supporting Milestone or stop supporting Rainbow Studios, and I think that's the wrong answer. Like, we need to be constructive and criticize.
I think people have been constructive for 7 years, and this is where we're at. So I feel like now is the time where people need to make the decision. Do we support Milestone or do we not support them? Because it's been 7 years. People should have enough time now to form an opinion, unless they're brand new to these series, MXGP and Supercross. But they've had plenty of time.
The things that need to be fixed and try to get them changed. I feel like I've tried really hard to be constructively critique, if you will, of these games. I always go back to, I remember when MXGP 2019 was being launched, and you know, we had gone over to Europe to test the game, and I sat for probably in 2 consecutive nights, like 3 or 4 straight hours with the developers of the game. One was a lead designer, one was, just one of the head developers of the game, and they were, trying to forward think with the game and make these steps in the progress and stuff like that. And I was not shy about my criticism with the game. I don't go over there and just basically, for lack of a better word, kiss ass. And I tried to make these changes like known and things that should be felt and a difference looked at. And what I can tell you is that in those conversations that I had 2 years ago versus coming into this MXGP 2021 game now, some of the criticisms that I had that night have been changed or felt or heard or what have you. And to me, that's some of the progress that I can see. People always like to criticize Milestone and Rainbow because they don't respond to fan criticism or fan feedback.
Well, I don't blame people for holding that opinion. We've been asking for terrain deformation for years, and the best they've come out with in 8 years has been pre-made ruts. Now, I'm not saying that those pre-made ruts are bad, because they can be a good placeholder if you're trying to build up a terrain deformation system from scratch. But it's been seven years. So I think by now they should have pretty close to a perfected terrain deformation system if they have implemented it back in 2014 or started implementing it back then. If they wait until now to create one, it's a lot of wasted time because people have been asking for terrain deformation for years. People have been asking for different dirt compounds. People have been asking for different compound biomes, like that in-game compound. It's always the same biome. Woodlands, same damn compound biome. People have been asking for Monster Energy gear. People have been asking for customization options. I can maybe make a whole nother video about everything that we've asked for that still hasn't been done. And I know people want to give them the benefit of the doubt, saying that they're a small studio and they have to put their time and effort into this game, but it's been 7 years since they picked up motocross games and supercross games and been doing 2 games a year since 17. By now, they should know what they're doing. And if we're still asking for the same things 5 years from now, just tell them that they don't know what they're doing.
I think Rainbow does a pretty good job with that because I feel like they've listened to a lot of what people have said about freeing up the air physics, and then All Out's physics even had a rehaul right in the middle of the game coming out, like 2 or 3 years into it coming out, where they like basically made the game a little bit heavier and it wasn't as loose and floaty feeling, and then there was a lot of suspension changes that you could make and make the game better. And as many people talk crap about that game, there's a devout community behind that game that thinks it's a fantastic game, and good on them. Like I hate that there's so much negative backlash about all these games. Like, it doesn't matter which genre you fall in. It's awesome that there's so many moto games for us to choose from. If you are a bikes fan, be an MX Bikes fan. You don't have to suddenly criticize everybody that's a big MXGP fan or a big Supercross the Game fan or a big All Out fan, and vice versa. Like, it doesn't need to be these warring sides, in my opinion. I think it's just everyone has a preference of how much time in a day that they have to play a video game and how much they want out of a video game and what they feel like should be in a game. And if a certain game from Rainbow Studios, Milestone, Piboso, or JLV answers those questions, then go play that game and be happy with it. I will continue to remain happy that there are so many games for us to choose from, and a lot of games that me as a moto fan gets to play and enjoy. So anyway, just
so I'm just gonna go back to the disclaimer I said about this top of this video. It was, what was it, like, I guess about 35 minutes ago, like 40 minutes ago I started reacting. This is just all my opinion. If you like playing a certain game, that's cool. I'm not gonna hate you for liking game, franchise, certain developer. This is just me stating my own opinion. I'm only one person. Like I said, if you like MX Bytes or if you like any other other game that deals with motocross, good on you. I'm stating my opinion. Yeah, so see what he says at the end.
Trying to have like a pretty open and honest discussion. I realize that some of my thoughts and opinions will not mimic what you guys have to say, and that's totally fine. Like I'm not here trying to change your mind about everything, and I'm not trying to tell you that these games are must buys and go out and get them tomorrow and stuff like that. I just like coming on here and trying to present some evidence and some facts as to why some of the decisions are made and why some of the things aren't changed and why some of the things look the way they do in these games. And in hindsight, look back at how much change they have had. Has it been positive or has it been negative? So anyway, MXGP 2021 coming out November 30th on all the next-gen consoles and all the, I guess it'd be the 8th gen consoles, 8th and 9th gen consoles, except I don't believe Nintendo Switch they're going to have a game for, but they will be having PC Steam, obviously.
Yeah, I believe
so,
this is just him
I'll
talking
be playing
about,
a lot of that. But if you guys have any comments or questions, or you just want to open the dialogue and continue talking about this, please go down to the comment section below. I'd be happy to discuss further with some of my thoughts and you know, not just gloss over what you guys have to say. I really want to hear real feedback. And as we move into MXGP 2021 in the coming month, I think it's just time to get, you know, maybe a little bit excited and hyped and see what features come with this new game and what career mode aspects are going to be like and whether the multiplayer features are going to be a little bit better and there's not going to be glitches and stuff like that.
It's all going to be the same.
And instead of just jumping to an immediate conclusion of bashing the game, how about we play it first before we just, you know, decide to completely write it off and say it's a bad game like everybody wants to say. So that's my thoughts and opinions. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. As always, appreciate you guys stopping by, and hopefully we'll see you guys in the next one.
Okay, so it kind of ends off saying that we should give the game a chance, which I think we should give it at least a chance, but I think what I've seen so far with the trailer and whatnot, I'll be looking forward to seeing the gameplay. It comes out, I think it says Thursday, so that's tomorrow. So I'll be waiting for that before I formulate a true opinion. But on first impression, it's not looking the best. But I'll keep an open mind. I'll just wait for the gameplay he's coming out with tomorrow. And again, like I said, if anyone's wondering what I feel they should do, is that, like I said, it's what a lot of people have asked. People want to get back to that reflex level of arcade motocross games where the feeling on the bike, skill gap, how many riders used to be on the gate, used to be 16, I believe, and I think it used to be was 12, but I think there was you were able to do 16 in certain. Let me think. V reflex 16 riders. Yeah, it's 12 riders in reflex, but yeah, I think people just want to get back to that reflex level, and I feel like until any of these arcade motocross games reaches that level, people will always bring up reflex, because I know you brought that up. So this has just been my reaction. This video, didn't know what to expect, gave some opinions and thoughts. I have a lot more opinions and thoughts on the Supercross games, but this is mostly focused on MXGP. And this has been me, Chameleon, reacting, and I'll just be signing off now. Bloop.